Welcome to the Office of Early Childhood's webinar, The Air We All Breathe, the Essence of Mental Health and How We All Have a Connection to It. As we prepare to get started, passing the baton to Diana Reyes, who will give us interpretive instructions.
Hello everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Diana Reyes y voy a dar instrucciones sobre cómo acceder a la traducción para esta presentación. En la parte inferior de la pantalla, haga clic en el globo a la derecha con la palabra interpretación debajo. En la ventana que abre, haga clic en SP o español. Los participantes en el canal del idioma escucharán el audio traducido y también el audio original a un volumen más bajo. Deberá presionar silenciar el audio original para que no escuche ningún eco del inglés debajo del español. Deberá seleccionar esta opción al seleccionar el idioma. Voy a poner instrucciones en el chat también. Que pase un buen día.
Thank you so much, Diane. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deb Fliss. I am the director of the OEC's Quality Improvement Division. Thank you for being with us. We're happy to have you here today. You may already be aware that this webinar is part of a series of webinars sponsored by the Office of Early Childhood, highlighting the importance of behavioral health and exploring its many aspects, resources, and challenges. As adults, it's important that we are healthy in mind and body, for children cannot raise themselves. Our children deserve the best version of ourselves that we can provide for them. Our goal is to support our community in achieving this. In doing so, we aim to destigmatize mental health and generate a supportive and supported community in the early childhood space. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we are pleased to highlight our connections within our state by calling attention to the resources and partnerships across state agencies that help us to do this work together in collaboration and in support of overall health and wellness. We'd like to thank CTN for covering and live streaming this webinar. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote presentation, State Representative Kai Belton. Representative Belton was elected to the Connecticut General Assembly in 2023. With almost 2 decades of service as a licensed master social worker in Middletown. She is known for her dynamic leadership and strong advocacy, particularly in victim services and children's mental health. Her passion lies in creating a better Connecticut by advocating for affordable housing, quality health care, and education. She proudly represents the 100th District, Middletown, my hometown. Representative Belton remains a fearless advocate for equity and justice, embodying a commitment to the well-being of all Connecticut residents. We are so honored to have her as our keynote presentation today. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kai Belton. I am the state representative for the 100th District of Middletown, and I'm honored to be your keynote speaker today. And I really wish I could be there with all of you virtually, but my schedule would not allow, unfortunately. But I am so grateful for technology and happy to be able to participate in this capacity. So a little about myself. I will start with my most favorite thing. I am a grandma, AKA Mimi, of a 3-year-old little boy who I absolutely adore. He truly brings so much joy to my heart. I also have 3 adult children who are wonderful as well, but they are not as adorable or as fun as my baby boy. Shh, don't tell them. So I am also a social worker and I am a practicing clinician, which is a very significant piece of my identity. I have been in the field for over 20 years, and I consider myself to be a wellness activist. I might have just made that up. So I say this because I have done the work of a preschool teacher, family resource center coordinator, school counselor, victim services. I've done so much work over the years that when I moved into leadership roles, I made it a priority to create an environment that would prevent burnout and to enhance employee wellness. I felt like that was important because when I was doing the on the ground work, I didn't have that kind of support. I felt overworked. I definitely did not prioritize my own wellness, and I was stressed out a lot and feeling quite empty. Um, Also during the pandemic, I, worked with nurses and victim advocates across our state, helping them with their wellness, recognizing signs, learning skills to help manage stress. And as we all know, there was a huge need for mental health professionals during the pandemic, and our system was overwhelmed. And this really prompted me to get my clinical license. Um, I wanted to do my part to support people who were struggling. And I had never wanted to do that in the past. I always wanted to, do the work that I was doing, leadership in nonprofit organizations. But this felt different. So I really wanted to do my part. I also took a mindfulness teacher certification course through Copper Beach. And I felt like it was important to do that because there were so many individuals, especially people of color, that don't necessarily trust therapy or might need to ease into it. So I felt like I would make sure that, I had resources to support many different people and meet them where they were. I also started during the pandemic this women's wellness group, just talking to many individuals, many women who were caring for others during such a horrible time. I really wanted to create space for them. And I was hoping that 5 women would show up and, we would, you know, talk about different stressors that we were experiencing and learning some skills to help manage them. And 5 women would be great. Well, 20 women showed up. There was a need then, and there is a need now. I think the pandemic just shined a brighter light on what people were experiencing even before the pandemic, right? So, supporting those who give so much of themselves to other people is something I'm very, very passionate about. Um, so, when I was asked to be your speaker for today, I jumped at the opportunity. So, enough about me. We are here today because of you all. Many of you are parents, childcare providers, home visitors, child advocates, someone important in a child's life. You are all giving so much of yourselves all the time, pouring into your work, families, church, school, and your cup can feel empty, right? And somehow you're still trying to pour. And that is when stress and burnout show their ugly faces. So let's talk about stress for a bit. So we know that stress is a daily experience for most, right? We're impacted by our workload, challenging colleagues, children with different challenges, but we also have our own lives, and those come with challenges, right? Like relationships, finances, our own health stuff. We carry around all these things, and they impact how we show up, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. But with stress, there is an end in sight. Getting there might be a bit difficult though. But burnout, on the other hand, is a cycle of negative emotions and withdrawal that result from investing too much into something emotionally, mentally, or physically without doing anything to restore yourself, not doing anything to refill your cup. So the hard part about this is that the only way to refill your cup is you deciding to make yourself a priority. Find ways to refill your cup and then actually do it. You can't pour from an empty cup. successfully, right? The children in your life need you and you need you. So it's easy to identify stress, right? Um, we know what happens in our bodies when we experience stress. I know for me, I start to feel pain right here in my neck. And sometimes I could start to feel anxious. Um, but sometimes we don't know how to recognize burnout. So I'm just going to go through some different signs that might let us know that we're experiencing burnout. So, one, you could feel exhausted, physically and emotionally drained, no energy, tired all the time. Two, you're not motivated, you have difficulty concentrating, and you're less productive. Three, you can feel detached and very negative towards work and colleagues. And sometimes this is where all that work drama comes from, right? You may also feel anxious, irritable, sad, might be experiencing mood swings, and knowing that you have to go into work just feels emotionally and physically draining. You might have difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. You might be up thinking about all of your responsibilities, and I'm sure you're not even on the list. You can feel like work isn't fulfilling anymore. You no longer enjoy the work that you used to. You might start to avoid work and taking more sick days. You might also neglect your personal needs like exercise, hobbies, or spending time with people that you care about. I also want to add that if you are someone who lives with anxiety or depression or any other health challenges, sometimes symptoms can worsen quickly when you're stressed or are burnt out. And seeing a mental health professional is important in this case. So, this is pretty serious stuff, right? And for so many of us, we would go to the end of the earth to support the wellness of our own family, families we work with, and our friends, but we will ignore our own needs. We will put them last, and we don't deserve that. We should be giving ourselves the same loving kindness and compassion that we give to others. And we deserve that. We deserve to be our best selves, right? So I know I talked earlier about being a social worker and leadership and supporting staff wellness, but that is also very important to me as a legislator and many of my colleagues as well. So, some things we work on directly impact staff wellness, like assessing and increasing the workforce, increasing access to mental health resources and supports throughout our state, adequately funding early childhood programs, um, providing competitive wages and benefits like paid sick leave, which I'm super proud of. And when I think of employee wellness for professionals like us, I think that this is not just about us prioritizing ourselves, but this is about lawmakers and our employers, doing their parts to help with this as well. So this truly helps, or it takes our entire state, but it helps our entire state. A happier, healthier you means happier, healthier children and a happy, healthier state. So, a quick story. Many years ago, um, my niece, who was in her 20s now, is she was 5 at the time. She had to live with me for a year, and at the time, I had my 3 children. I was a home visitor. I was going to school part time, and as though that wasn't enough, I was going through a divorce. Right? I was stressed and I was burned out. It was a lot, and having an extra child was difficult, but most of the time my niece was the sweetest little thing. But in the morning, she was not the sweetest little thing at all. Um, After not sleeping much, feeling tired, anxious, the last thing I wanted to do was like wake up and deal with her, right? Because I didn't know what she was working with, every morning. I'm like, oh my goodness. So, and I had a routine, right? I, have this list that I needed to check off, and I was on autopilot, getting everyone out of the house. We have things to do, and she would never cooperate. So one morning I got up. I don't know what the change was with me, but I was just determined that I was going to be in a good mood. I played some music, gospel, to help lift my spirits. I cooked some breakfast and I went into her room, and yep, I heard shark music. um, but I was like, nope, it's going to be a good day. So I started to sing this song, Wake Up Everybody, No More Sleeping in Bed. And she turned around and she was smiling. And I was like, oh, right. So I refused to verbally acknowledge that I noticed that she was in a good mood this morning. I just gave her my good morning hug that I usually give her. And I continued to do my thing, being in good spirits. And as she was eating her breakfast, which she never did, she looked at me and she said, Auntie, you are so happy today. And I quickly responded with, that's because I love you all so much. But I went to my room and I started to cry because in that moment, I knew that I wasn't giving them my best self and that most days she was responding to that. And it really changed how I did things in the morning. Um, it really changed how I took care of myself. It really made me start to notice things about myself that I hadn't noticed before. And I really tried to um, work on those things so that I could be a better mother, a better auntie, and I wanted to be a better me. Now, that is my story. And that does not mean that everyone's challenging behavior around you is because of you. I shared it because I do believe how we show up for our children truly matters. How we show up for ourselves, that matters just as much, even more. So, we've discussed stress and burnout and how important it is for you to be well and prioritize yourself. And I'm going to give you some simple strategies that I hope you'll implement in your life if you haven't done so already. The first one is eating healthy. Now, mind you, these are very simple, and you're probably going to be like, what? Like, I know all this, but these are simple things to get you started on your journey, and then you can add as you go along. Eating healthy meals and staying hydrated. Stress can cause us to forget to eat sometimes, or we eat bad things because they're a quicker option. And over time, it really impacts our physical and emotional health. Staying hydrated is also very important for mood regulation. And dehydration causes us to be irritable, it increases anxiety. So, staying hydrated and eating healthy food really amplifies the body's stress response. Number two, my favorite, morning and evening routine. We all know that repetitive routines help the day go smoother, but they are also calming and help reduce anxiety. They'll help you to get your morning started on a good note, and you can end your night on a really good note. And incorporating specific strategies that might bring some calm, like yoga stretches in the morning, or maybe some tea and journaling or reading before bed. This may help to improve your sleep, which is difficult for many of us. The next is exercise. Now, I know that there might be some gym buffs out there, and that is great. I'm so proud of you. You should be so proud of yourself. And I wish I could be that committed, but I'm not. But for some others who may not be able to find much time or motivation. Walking 30 minutes a day can be a transformative habit. It strengthens your heart, it helps with weight management, and it releases mood boosting endorphins, and it reduces stress. Walking is a simple and powerful path to a healthier and happier life. Also, spending quality time with people who pour into you. Now, that's the key, people who pour into you. Sometimes people can take from you, and that's not to say you can't be around those people. Just making sure you're intentional about spending quality time with people who pour into you. Because when you spend time with people who do that, you can openly discuss your emotions, things that are causing you stress in your life. And although they may not be able to take those stressors away, it's allowing yourself to be vulnerable, feeling comfortable enough to talk with people can help reduce your stress levels and make them easier to manage. The last thing is practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being aware of and accepting the present moment without judgment. It involves being fully engaged in what's happening around you and paying attention to your internal state, such as your thoughts and your emotions. And when we practice mindfulness, we're practicing the art of creating space for ourselves, space to think, space to breathe, space between ourselves and our reactions, checking in with our bodies and exploring what it needs and responding to it. This is showing ourselves loving kindness and compassion. There are so many different ways you can take care of yourself. The first step is acknowledging that you deserve it, and next, taking the steps to get there. All the wonderful work you do every day does not go unnoticed, and you prioritizing yourself won't change that. It only enhances who you are and what you're doing. Our children in Connecticut need you, and we owe it to them and ourselves to show up full each day. And I'm going to be ending shortly, but I want to do a mindful breathing exercise with all of you, and also mention that it starts within resources on the OEC website. I think they're phenomenal, and I think that these tips are essential to your wellness journey. So if you haven't, please check them out. I also want to say, before we go into this exercise, that mental health impacts us all in some way, right? And to think that we aren't impacted is like saying we can walk through water without getting wet. Everyone on this webinar is getting wet somehow. It doesn't matter your race, socioeconomic background, education level. I mean, I'm a therapist, and recently I had to seek my own therapist. As some of you may have heard, my predecessor, Representative Quentin Williams, was killed in a car accident. And I was asked to run shortly after his passing. And I was still dealing with the grief of losing my father and my best friend to COVID, and now a beloved friend. And this loss devastated my community, and I felt like I had to step up to the plate and won the election. So here I am living in a community that was grieving and not even knowing how to celebrate a win. We didn't know how we should even acknowledge this. And I went into a legislature that was also grieving a colleague. There were people who couldn't even look at me because my presence meant his absence. Have you ever made contact with someone and they just started crying? That was literally my life. I also stepped right into a huge funding fight in my town, which was really stressful as well. Because I never had a chance to even find my footing. I was stressed beyond measure. You know, very anxious all the time. I started breaking out in hives, and I was like, you know what? I cannot do this. I was also doing crisis work. I'm like, I'm a legislator, a mom, a grandma, a clinician. I can't go out like this. Like, I have to take care of myself. And, I deserve to be the best me, and they all deserve the best me. So I went and found me a great therapist. Um, and it's something that I feel is essential to what I do every day. I need to be able to process all that, I have in my head and my heart. And I encourage all of you to do what you need to do um, to support your wellness as well, right? Because we all get wet, and some of us get drenched. We just think about um, the loss in the General Assembly alone. Like we recently had two legislators lose their husbands. We lost, a staff member. We have several people who have health issues, and these are people who are making laws for the state of Connecticut, right? But we are human. We are all human, and we all go through things. We all get wet, and we all should ask for help when we need it. And my time is almost up, but I want to end with the breathing exercise. So some of you may have heard of box breathing, and it's also referred to as square breathing. It's a deep breathing technique that you can use to help slow down your breathing. It helps to distract your mind, and you're counting to 4, calming your nervous system and decreasing the stress in your body. It's a powerful relaxation technique, and it just helps to return your breathing pattern back to a relaxed rhythm. And I like it because you can do it when you're in a very stressful situation and no one will notice. So I invite you to do this with me as we are preparing. If you're sitting in a chair, make sure that your back is supported and your feet are firmly on the floor. Breathe as you would normally, just for a moment, and observe the rise and fall of your chest and stomach. And if you notice that your chest is rising, but your stomach is not, that means you're shallow breathing. If your stomach is rising, you're deep breathing and activating your full relaxation in your body. So we are going to start the practice now. So close your eyes if you need to. Breathe in, counting to 4 slowly. Feel the air into your lungs. Hold breath for 4 seconds. And exhale through your mouth 4 seconds. Second time, breathe in, counting to 4. Hold for 4. Exhale through your mouth. One more time, breathe in. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. And allow your breath to go back to its normal rhythm. And open your eyes if you have them closed. I hope all of your bodies feel relaxed and calm. And I wish you all a great rest of your day. And I am clapping for you all, no matter where you are on your wellness journey. And I thank you for the amazing work you do for our children and our families each day. Please take care of yourself. Thank you.
Wow, what a powerful message around mental health from State Representative Belton. I can personally relate to everything that she was saying. My name is Shanae Russell from the Office of Early Childhood. Similar to Representative Belton, I am also a social worker and a mom. I can personally speak to the importance around mental health from all of my viewpoints, but generationally and as a woman of color, I am still a work in progress, I will say. I have the honor to introduce a collage of a few videos of parent stories from the By Families, For Families, Keep It Real video series. This initiative began in 2020 with a team of impassioned individuals working together to help uplift the parent family voice. I had the pleasure to be a part of this team and initiative from the beginning. The purpose for Families, By Families, Keep It Real initiative was to enhance and sustain connections with family members, parent, relative, guardians raising children, grounded in genuine and reciprocal engagement by video recording their personal words of wisdom. Such engagement captured the realness of families' resilience, as well as highlights unique and diversified ways such resiliency is displayed. We will now take a look at different stories from a few parents sharing their own experiences around mental health, how they cope, and model strategies for their children. It is my pleasure to now have us all hear from these parents around the importance in taking care of our mental health.
I think mental health care is such an important aspect of overall healthcare, of self-care, and our kids see this. They're sponges. Even if we're not talking about our stresses or anxieties directly to them, they'll pick up on it from our emotions, from the ways that we're talking to them. And so I've always found it really important to just vocalize when I'm having a hard day, again, age appropriate ways, depending on what age your child's at the time, but to explain, maybe you're kind of short fused and you yell a little more one day than you intended to. Tell your child, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you. I was frustrated. I was stressed out. I was feeling anxious. It had nothing to do with you. And when we kind of explain our emotions in different ways, it also teaches our children that we're safe, trusted adults that they can come to with their emotions, no matter how big or how small they are at any given time.
I found that taking time out early in the morning, when the house was still sleeping, was like my me time and my time to ground myself and kind of prepare myself, and bring forth like all that good energy to my day, and then start the routine of kind of organizing. Meal prepping was a must. At night, when bedtime was 8 o'clock, from 8 until it was like my time and then my husband's time. And I always liked, I like taking baths with some Epsom salt and some lavender and just disconnect. Soft music, breathing techniques was a must, still is, because I have so many kids, and just really taking that time out.
So a lot of women that I know they feel that asking for help is a sign of weakness, because a lot of women like to feel like they have to handle everything themselves. But asking for help and being vulnerable is actually a sign of immense strength, because when you ask for help, you're starting to pull yourself out of that darkness and pull yourself up, and that takes so much strength. So I just want women to know also, when you ask for help and you tell someone you're struggling, that is actually taking care of your baby, because you cannot care for your child the way you want to when you're not okay. So when you ask for help, that is taking care of your baby. And I just want women to know that anyone that's struggling, it's a temporary feeling. It is not going to last forever. There is help out there, and if you get the help that you need, you will feel better.
Boy, continue to receive powerful words of influence. We thank those mothers so very much. And Shanae, thank you very much for introducing the video. Now we are going to hear from Dr. Haley Scott DeClerc, who's going to give an overview of our partnership with UConn Health Center. Passing it to you, Haley.
Hi, thank you so much. As Lorna shared, my name is Haley Scott, and I work for the Office of Early Childhood. I am within the Family Support Unit with home visiting. And so it's a pleasure and an honor to share about a program that we work on called Mind Over Mood. And I need to just give a shout out to our partners over at UConn Health with Dr. Karen Steinberg and coordinator Jennifer Vendetti. So I'm just going to give you a little overview of Mind Over Mood. And first we start within home visiting. And I'm just going to move the bars so everybody can see it. There we go. So the Connecticut OEC has over 42 home visiting sites across the state of Connecticut. And home visiting programs, as we know, improve the health of young children by providing support and services for them and their families right within their homes. Home visiting programs reach pregnant women, expectant fathers, and parents and caregivers of children under the age of 5. So with home visiting, that is actually the avenue that you can get into to access services for Mind Over Mood. I'm just going to quickly show you the site and show you how you would access home visiting services. Once you're on our home visiting site, you will scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see this fabulous map here. And you could find out, hey, okay, well, I live in Heartland. And I'll scroll and then it will give you the various home visiting programs within that town. Again, home visiting services are the avenue to get into the Mind Over Mood initiative that I'm going to talk about today. And I'm really referring to perinatal mental health services. And so our Mind Over Mood initiative with UConn Health is a perinatal mental health initiative that I referred to previously. It's dedicated to addressing unmet clinical needs for families enrolled in our home visiting programs that I just shared how you would get into. Mind Over Mood programs with the help with clinical needs during pregnancy, postpartum, and early parenting within their own homes and also virtually too. And so this component over here on the right-hand side, this just shares the different components of Mind Over Mood. And so it offers training and support services with perinatal mental health disorders to our OEC home visiting sites and with other programs. We also offer a clinical service and psychotherapy referral coordination. And then if you scroll to the bottom, we have a therapist partnership network. And we also offer consultation for perinatal mental health resources within the state. As I shared, there are a few different components of Mind Over Mood. And so the first thing that they do is they offer technical supports for programs to know how to screen for perinatal mental health. And so with our home visiting programs, once a mom is linked to home visiting services, a home visitor is then able to do an Endenburg depression screening. And so if the mom tests positive, then that home visitor is able to refer to a Mind Over Mood therapist. Those therapists are independent practice, Husky credentialed therapists who then are able to take on that mom. They can also do virtually or in person as well. And just another caveat that we do too as well is we also offer a 16-session home visiting based therapy, and that's through UConn Health. We have a therapist there as well. So for moms that don't have Husky or who maybe are undocumented and don't have insurance, they're able to access services through there as well. Okay. And also what we do is we offer consultation for home visitors and supervisors and other clinical needs, because we know sometimes this work can be tough. And so we're able to access services in that avenue as well. And I'm hoping people are able to see because I'm trying to move my little screens all over here. Okay, so I think this is a really cool process too, where it really talks about the home visitor and therapist and the parallel process that happens, because what's great is that they work hand in hand with that mom, and they're able to combat maternal depression and, you know, have some symptom reduction. Also look at maternal emotional availability, so it's more increased. And the home visitation is more effective when we're able to work hand in hand. And the great thing too is that each home visitor and therapist, they're both working on the maternal and child interaction. So they're more positive. And we look for this team approach to increase the support overall for the moms. And obviously we're looking at this as a team approach, as it reduces, you know, the possibly, that reduces any if they're having depression or anything like that. And I just want to share, so this work is really important to myself as well. I was a young mom at age 21, and I really wish that I had this accessibility to receive services. I really could have used a home visitor and then also a therapist as well, because we know this work is not easy, especially being a parent. I don't think I also shared. I'm a licensed therapist as well. I'm in the field. And so we would love to hear from you. So please check out our, if you can look at the map, then you can see if you would like some home visiting services as well. Thank you.
Haley, thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. The work that you and the team is doing in support of Mind Over Mood emphasizes all the more the importance of starting as early as possible. So thank you. And we're going to love seeing all the hearts that are popping up. And we're going to continue in sharing and learning about resources available to us and the importance of us attending to our mental health as we transition to our panel discussion. And so honored to have panelists with us today. And as I share your name, if you can just come on and just say hello, just so the speaker mode can feature you so people can know who is talking and who is who. And so first, we're so honored to have Dr. Samantha Smalls with us, who is a psychotherapist of New Chapter Counseling Services and a board of director of the Connecticut chapter of Postpartum Support International. Dr. Samantha, may you please say hello?
Hello.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being with us. Next, we have Keisha Gibbs, who is a member of Connecticut Two Generational Initiative. Keisha, may you say hello, please?
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Thank you for being with us, Keisha. And then we have Karen Pascal, who is director of the Connecticut Head Start Collaboration Office. Karen, may you say hello, please?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here and happy to have all of you here. And so let us continue with the sharing of the thoughts and the words of wisdom. We had a wonderful opening keynote message. We saw a video vignette of different parents sharing their own food for thought and words of wisdom. And then we learned more of a specific program, Mind Over Mood, that supports different efforts as it pertains to supporting mothers prenatally and also during their pregnancy and after their pregnancy. But the first question I have for the three of you, if you can please tell us a little about yourself and what path led you to where you are today. So yes, I gave your name and I gave the connection of what role you play, but want to know a bit more beyond your role. So if we can start with Karen, please, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to be a part of Head Start.
Sure. Thank you so much again. Really excited to be here and to discuss this very important topic with you all. Again, so as Lorna shared, my name is Karen Pascal, and I'm Connecticut's Head Start Collaboration Office Director, and I sit at the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. So just a little bit about collaboration offices. So these offices serve the 50 states, DC, Puerto Rico, our American Indian, Alaskan Native Head Starts, and also our migrant and seasonal Head Starts. So as many of you know, Head Start funding flows directly from the federal government to the local level. And so my role is really to help connect Head Start programs to state systems and services, and to help facilitate partnerships to benefit children and families enrolled in those programs. So I had shared this story with Lorna, but I actually really fell in love with Head Start when I was in graduate school, studying to be a K-6 teacher. My class took a field trip to a local Head Start program in West Haven. So shout out to West Haven Community House Head Start. And it was late, class was almost over. And of course, I was the one who kept everyone there, probably longer than they wished. And I kept asking questions, right? Question after question about Head Start's 2-generational model, right? About serving both the child and the family. And that day, it really changed the trajectory of my career. So when it was time to look for a job, I found one as a Head Start Disabilities Coordinator, which, don't tell, but is one of my most favorite positions in Head Start. And in that role, I helped connect children and families to the services they needed, right? Whether that was birth to 3 services, the local education agency or LEA for special education preschool services, or any mental health services in the community. From there, I worked as a Head Start program manager and then as an early Head Start director. And today, my work really still focuses on helping build those connections on a larger scale, helping to build and strengthen those very systems that support all of Connecticut's young children and their families.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. Wonderful to hear your path and your journey. And you made reference to 2-gen approach in your sharing. So with that, it's a natural progression to Keisha, if I may. May you please share a little bit about yourself and what path led you to be a parent leader?
Hi again, and thank you for having me. I am really grateful for this opportunity. I am Keisha Gibbs. Again, I am a parent leader and I am part of the 2-generational initiative, short 2-gen, advisory board in which we help parents and children, or caretakers and children, the whole family, to progress and to be stable as well as thriving. I got started with 2-gen through my son. So my firstborn son, he was diagnosed with ADHD. And I wanted to find out more information, even though my family has dealt with ADHD before through my brother. I wanted to find supports for me as a mom to help him. And so I got started through a parent cafe called AFCamp in Hartford. And from there, I got introduced to 2-gen by one of the coordinators named Janine, and she introduced me to 2-gen, and that's where I got started being a parent leader, learning and training and helping other families to be able to thrive.
Excellent. Pardon, my mute button was being defiant. Thank you, Keisha. And with you talking about the importance of parents and supporting parents, that's a natural segue to Dr. Samantha. May you please share a little bit about yourself and what led you to where you are?
Yes, and the only way I could do this is to be real and authentic. So I'm going to share one of my favorite lyrics from a song from Madison Ryan Ward. I don't know if y'all know who she is, but she has a lyric that says, "Never been a product of a flawless environment." And that has literally led me to this journey of being a licensed professional, working with moms with maternal mental health. I became the owner and founder of New Chapter Counseling Services, after my own struggles with trying to figure out what is there out there for moms, and honestly stumbling over the fact that I myself had suffered from postpartum depression and didn't even know. My journey was trying to figure out what is a better way to provide services to the community, especially the community who are seeking services, who doesn't want to go through state agencies. And with that, and then the closing of St. Agnes West Hartford, which was connected to DCF, that provided services for young moms, teen moms. I was providing services through an agency at that time. And when that connection was gone, it was like, what else can I do? And here comes me just looking like frantically all over the internet. What can I do? And I stumbled over Postpartum Support International. And I went head first. And when I went head first, when I showed up to that training and was the only Black person in that training, I was like, oh, Okay, so now there's a need for me. I'm in the right room and there's a need for me. And then it turned into, wait, everything I'm learning right now, I suffered from and didn't even know. And then I was like, well, I'm about to make a practice. And I'm about to provide services to this clientele. And I want to be one of the 4% of therapists of color that actually provide this type of services. And here I am. And I am a partner of Mind Over Mood, which I'm happy that that is something that's being displayed because it is a need, the accessibility and providing services outside of an agency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There certainly is a need, and we're so glad the need found you to where you are now. And so, with that, continuing with the conversation, in light of what the three of you have just described, and some of you have specifically made reference to it, but going to ask you to go a little deeper with it, how is mental health recognized within your respective group? So, whether you're talking about 2Gen or whether you're talking about your private practice or Head Start, how is mental health recognized within your group? And whoever would like to go first.
Oh, okay. I would like to say for 2Gen, as for me as a parent, because that's what's first before parent leadership, is being a parent is recognizing that that role is important for us. So we are leading and we're remembering that we are leading for others and helping others, but we also are still parents. And sometimes we could overdo it. We could, get tired or burnt out. And oftentimes we have to take breaks. And sometimes we accommodate one another when we're doing planning for anything or even just how to balance being that parent and being the leader in those roles. But what is vital or important for me as a parent and a parent leader is making sure to prioritize myself. I come from a Caribbean background, so a lot of the times the focus is not on yourself, it's more on your family or your community. And I had to learn another way of acknowledging mental health, which sometimes or most of the time is ignored in the Caribbean or Jamaican community, where it's seen as a weakness and as a stumbling block to progress. So I had to learn if I don't take care of myself, I can't possibly take care of my family, and I can't possibly lead other parents to take care of their families as well. So we prioritize nurturing ourselves and taking care of ourselves. In fact, meetings that we have, we usually start with asking how we're doing, how's our week, whether it's good or bad, we're here to support each other before we get on to the work that has to do with 2Gen.
Thank you, Keisha. Thank you. Prioritizing, absolutely.
And I will add to that, to even become an employee of New Chapter Counseling Services, one of my questions, it's the last question in the interview, is, so how do you take care of yourself? Because I do not need anybody pouring into somebody when not even that your cup is empty, your lid is not even open for somebody to pour into you. So therefore, how are you going to provide services to other people? So I literally want to, and I feel like I do create an atmosphere where your mental health is just as important as those you serve. And honestly, take care of you first so everybody else could benefit from it. And also, when I talk about the clientele, which majority of our clientele are women and women who struggle from postpartum depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders and life transitions, for us to actually provide a safe space for them, and not just a safe space as I could tell you everything, but also safe enough to know that you are the expert of your life and I'm just a student that is learning how to guide you and actually seeing what you are willing and capable of doing that you don't even know yourself. So we are providing that empowering position to know that, yes, we all are a hot mess. But isn't it good that we could show up as ourselves and grow and develop the way that we need to just show up as yourself and just be that and be much more that you didn't even know you were?
My, oh my. And with that, Karen, your thoughts.
Sure. Thanks so much, Lorna. So, Head Start programs are supporting the mental health of children, their families, and their staff every day. And Head Start does have a long history of providing those comprehensive services along with the early care and education services they provide. And mental health has always been fundamental to those services. For example, programs have always offered mental health consultation for children and their families. I do think with the COVID-19 pandemic and in the last few years that the Office of Head Start has really reinforced its commitment to addressing mental health. And, I saw this firsthand as a former Head Start director. The shift to really a program-wide approach and a culture that promotes mental health and ensures that those mental health supports and strategies are effectively embedded in those programs. And so I really see it in Head Start programs as three core components. And the first would be mental health promotion. And then the second would be the prevention services and supports. And then the third would be helping connect those children, families, and staff to be able to access any kind of mental health treatment that they need. But I really think it's really kind of starts with ensuring that everyone understands, what we're talking about in Head Start programs when we say children's mental health, right? And all early childhood programs. So to me, mental health really is the same as the social and emotional well-being, right? The child's ability to express and regulate their emotions, form trusting relationships, explore, learn in their homes, in their classrooms, and in their communities. And, I think we know that mental health of children and also their caregivers is essential for school readiness, which, as you may know, is one of Head Start's goals, right? To help prepare our children for success both in school and in life. And programs can't really do that alone. So I just want to highlight that we have many partnerships within Head Start locally and at the state level that help us do that. And one of those partnerships would be our Head Start and DCF, or Department of Children and Families partnership. So really working with our community members to make sure that we're addressing children's mental health and well-being.
Thank you, Karen. What a comprehensive approach. Thank you. And thank you all for your response. And just want to say, greatly appreciate your candor and you all really sharing in an intimate way and greatly respect that. And that brings me to another question. What are your thoughts for some who may say, okay, what is being said is great, that's good. But really when it comes to children, what's most important is providing food for the table, placing a roof over their head, and having clothes on their back. That's what's essential for young children. What are your thoughts to that?
So I can go because I think I forgot to mute myself. So my apologies, Lorna. But I really think it's a great question. And so I just want to, as I mentioned earlier, right, Head Start is a 2-generational model, right, serving both the child and the families. Programs have social service team members. Some programs call them family advocates who are meeting with these families on a regular basis, right? They're helping to identify their strengths, their needs, their desires. They're helping to connect them to systems and services that will long serve them after they leave our programs. So I say this to say that many times our programs are serving families with high needs, right? Some may be experiencing homelessness or living in, unstable housing situations. And it has been my experience that securing stable housing is a priority, right, for that family. Very fortunate in Connecticut, we have a Head Start on Housing program, so a first in the nation program that's providing housing choice vouchers for children and families enrolled in Head Start who are experiencing homelessness. But helping them address those basic needs, families have also shared that they were grateful, right? Not just because they were able to secure housing, but for the continuity of the program itself. So these families shared that they knew they were bringing their children to a place every day where they were healthy, they were safe, and they were loved, right? So I think that the family advocates developing the relationships with the family, I think the teacher or the family child care provider developing a relationship with the child, they're always helping to support their mental health needs while really also supporting their basic needs, which we know that our children and families really do also need to meet their basic needs.
Thank you, Karen. Well said. Keisha, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Karen. Making sure that the basic needs are met, so that the family is well. I would put out there that when it comes to mental health, it should not be, or even self-care, should not be seen as secondary, but as the whole package, because we're not just taking care of the bodies of families, but we're taking care of the emotions, we're taking care of the thoughts. And so while we are taking care of the basic needs, I would put mental health as part of the basic needs as well, saying that, okay, your food, your clothes, your shelter is taken care of, and also your mental health is taken care of, and also all the aspects that make up the whole of the family is taken care of. So that's where I would see that mental health is not a secondary, or self-care is not a secondary or something to see as less than, but something to be as a cohesive whole to the family.
Well said. Well said. Dr. Samantha.
I have met some well-dressed, well-fed, nice home young people in my life who have been completely dysregulated, emotionally dysregulated. And I have met some, we're just making it. I may have hand-me-downs, and I may be couch surfing families with the most respectful, regulated, adjusted children. And the difference is literally how the parents show up. Because my main thing I tell my clients is all the time, and I say, and arguing me down, and some of them do, and I always win this. Take care of you first, and everybody else benefits. So if you're in the right mindset, then you have the mindset to accomplish those goals of getting food and shelter and other things that you need, right? And then you also have the mindset to help regulate your child's feelings, to be a safe space for them, to make sure you're delighting in them. And I'm just rambling off things from Circle of Security, which is one of my favorite theories, right? You thinking, because actually Representative Belton actually made reference to when she talked about shark music, your own attachment issues and things like that. Take care of that. So when it's time for you to go to your kids, you are modeling exactly what you do and what you can't do, and being a safe place for them to come to you. And you also looking at them like, I want you here. I can actually handle you. You know why? Because I actually handled myself first. So you first, and everybody else benefits. And I mean everybody, the whole system. So yes, your work, your own parents, people on the street, can you not cussing everybody out? Like literally everybody benefits. You first.
Oh, have me wanting to say amen. All right. Absolutely. Absolutely to everything all of you all are saying. Collectively, what you are saying recognizes the importance that all of those are essential needs for our children. They need shelter, they need food, they need clothing, and they need to be well mentally. But before that can happen, we adults have to be well. So yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, let's continue in that way. And we know that now that the acuity of the pandemic has lessened. It's 2024. The pandemic was in 2020. Did not say it's gone away, but the acuity has lessened. What lessons would you say have been learned as it relates to mental health? In other words, what has the pandemic shown us that may not have been as clear prior to the pandemic? Again, what lessons has the pandemic shown us that may not have been as clear before the pandemic as it relates to mental health? Now start with Dr. Samantha, please.
All right, there's a couple of things. There's been some myths that literally have been exposed. And one thing that has been exposed is accessibility to mental health services and also the means to provide it. Now, what do I mean by that? I found it interesting that when the pandemic happened, in the height of it, all of a sudden, all insurances could afford you mental health services paid 100% now. These are people who are gainfully employed and all of a sudden who has like these huge deductibles. Now, here's your free mental health services to make sure that you're okay. I thought, no, I thought that wasn't available to everybody. And then telehealth services. Here we are. And Medicaid clients could have telehealth services. Now it's accessible to everybody now. When private insurances always had telehealth services and people didn't know about it. But now it's allotted to a whole different community. So now we have that access. All of a sudden, the acuity of the pandemic goes down, and now we literally had to fight for legislation to keep telehealth services, which passed. But then the affordability of it is actually going back because there are some plans, especially in commercial insurances, where they're not paying for this anymore. But all of a sudden, when the pandemic was around, we could afford it 100%. So that's one thing that, it brought light to. Stillness, being alone in your own chaotic head exposed so much for so many people, right? We live in a society where we just go, 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 go. We never think to take care of ourselves. We never get a chance to process what happened to me the moment before. And because of that, we are able to function in dysfunction. When we were forced, because we ain't have an option, to sit in our dysfunction, OMG, everything that we didn't even know we were struggling with came just forward. And I was just like, this means that we need to sit still more often because we're moving too much that we're not able to realize that we are functioning in chaos like it's normal. It may be common, but there's nothing normal about what's going on and even how we're responding to things. That's not normal. It may be common, but common has never been normal, just like common sense. It's not, we all have it. It's all experience. It is what it is, right? So that was another thing that I really was looking at during the pandemic, especially being in private practice. And also that was also around when the George Floyd murder happened, and that brought up a lot of fear that people have always dealt with. But when it came to moms raising Black boys, all of a sudden it was just like, no, we really need to do something about this. And that became a new issue, something to really just focus on seriously and pay serious attention to. But that brought up a lot of stuff in mental health when it came to parents and really having fear of how do I raise a child in this world that I thought got better. But because of social media, it was thrown in my face and I could not turn my head because I had nothing else to do but to be online. So a lot of things was exposed, not only personally for people, but in society and also accessibility when it came to services. All these things came together and they all are literally still lingering. So the acuity of, is COVID real? Is it killing people? It still is. It's still real, but it's not as prominent right now. However, the underlying disease is still present and it shows up so in so many different ways. Those things have not changed.
Wow. I'm still stuck on functioning in dysfunction, but pardon. So with that, continuing with the same question, thank you so much, Dr. Samantha. Karen, what are your thoughts with respect to what lessons has the pandemic taught us? What things are clearer now that may not have been as clear before the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dr. Smalls shared so many important things, right? And I'm not sure exactly what else I could add to that, except that I think that I mean, it really just reinforced, right, how important mental health and well-being is for our children, but not only our children, but our caregivers, right? And I think that, you know, caregivers, including everyone, right, our parents, our guardians, their teachers, the family child care educators, home visitors, really everyone in a child's life, right? How the work that they're doing day in and day out is hard, right? And I think it just exasperated that and came to light during the pandemic how hard it is.
Absolutely. And thank you for reminding us of the family unit, how the family unit was impacted. Thank you, Karen. Keisha, your thoughts?
For me, what I noticed, thank you, Dr. Smalls. Exactly. I went through that with the telehealth. I had it for a little bit while the pandemic was going on. And as soon as it started to lessen, they removed it. And that kind of affected me and my sister. So I see what they were doing there. What I noticed during the pandemic was two things. The need for separated times. So for some people who are used to moving around or they go to work, it was a bit different for me because I was a stay-at-home mom, and so there was not really a separation of time or space. Our living room and our dining room was school and also family time and also resting time, and so it felt like another type of going all the time without a break. And then I also noticed that the mental health of my children were affected. I was able to bring them outside sometimes to play with friends, but I noticed them and the other children, they were so hungry for interaction that they were almost yelling at each other. So I saw that it greatly affected them, and there's still after effects. Even though they're at school, there's still this weirdness on how to connect with others without there being this like pandemic side effect from it. So that's what I did notice during that time.
Boy, so many things to see, and you describing the children, the way they were communicating is so telling. So telling, yes. And so with that, again, with us being in a different phase of the pandemic, but as you collectively have described, us still having the consequence of it, and just in general, as it pertains to mental health and the importance of mental health and self-care, what words of advice would you give adults about the importance of taking care of mental health? It's a two-part question. So what words of advice would you give adults about the importance of taking care of one's mental health? And then also, what words of advice would you give a young child about taking care of their feelings? So again, words of advice for an adult about taking care of their own mental health, and words of advice for a young child about taking care of their feelings. Let me start with Karen, please.
Sure. Thank you, Lorna. Um, as caregivers, I think it's so important to take care of yourself in order to provide the best care for your children. I think my colleagues made reference to it, right? When you're on the plane, you're supposed to put your mask on before you help the person you're sitting next to, right? And so I think it's the same concept here. I would encourage folks to seek out resources and supports available to you. You know, maybe those are through your employer, your health insurance, or support in your community, like your church or your congregation. Um, I also really think it's important to have connections with your peers. And I think especially for family child care providers who are often working, you know, by themselves. There are many resources available on eClick, which is the Office of Head Start's resource website. And so I can make sure that we put that in chat and also in the resource page on the behavioral health webpage. of the OEC website. And of course, many resources available through the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood to help caregivers support children's mental health, but also the well-being of themselves. And I would definitely recommend folks take a look at the pyramid model for supporting social and emotional competence in infants and young children. So it's a behavioral intervention and support framework that I think could be really helpful. And then for our kiddos, I mean, really just that it's okay to feel, right? It is okay to have feelings, whatever those feelings, may be.
Thank you, Karen. So true. Lots of wonderful resources, and it is okay to feel. Never too early to learn that. Thank you. Keisha, your thoughts and your words of advice, please.
My words of advice for the adults first is prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. Prioritize yourself. You are your child's first leaders. So lead by example. Lead by example by showing that you care for yourself. Lead by example with boundaries. Lead by example by being compassionate to yourself as you would for your children or your family. Taking care of your health, whether it's making sure you set your doctor's appointments, your dentist appointments, resting when you need to, not believing that you are a superhero by continuing to go and go and go. And for children, just like Karen said, it is okay to feel. And when we as the adults acknowledge our feelings and say it's okay for us to feel, we will also be able to help them know that their feelings are okay, their feelings are valid, and we can work through this together.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Keisha. Dr. Smalls.
So I was thinking about the answer to this question, and the most pertinent thing that came up for me is that we need to normalize mental health. It is looked at as a disorder, and that is so wrong. So think of it like this: brain health. Take care of your brain's health. Just like how we take care of our physical health, we also need to take care of our brain. So our brain helps our executive function, how we plan, how we think. It also holds all of our emotion and all our emotional memories. And it also keeps us alive. We have to make sure, and this is where our heart is. I know we have this heart, but this is where our heart is. This is where our passion, everything comes from within the brain. Don't you want to take care of that? Your brain health. Everybody has it. It's not just when something is going wrong. We call that an illness. So that means when my brain is sick, I need help. When I'm having issues with memory, when I'm having issues with anxiety, when I'm having issues with feeling like nobody cares and I'm by myself and I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what I'm going to do next and I can't plan this out and I can't do this. Oh, that's your brain health. Your brain say, "Hello, we need attending to." So we should attend to our brain health just like how we attend to our physical health. So that's what I will say to the adults. And I will add to that when it comes to the adults, when it comes to our children. A lot of us have been raised in an era of be seen and shut up, and what I say goes, and stay in a child's place. And that is not going to work on this generation here. We need to let that go so our kids who are dying at young ages by the cause of suicide, those who are dealing with online bullying, those who are dealing with low self-esteem, anxiety, especially since the pandemic happened, social anxiety, kids don't even know how to interact around each other. They're dealing with so much, but they come from the land and the world, from the generation of shut up and be seen, that they feel like they have to fight to have a voice. And when you have to fight to have a voice, you would choose to be silent and you will suffer in silence. So parents, let that go so that our kids could talk to us. So we're also able to recognize them as human beings with feelings, because we weren't recognized as human beings with feelings, that we have a hard time recognizing that we hurt our child's feelings. And that we didn't say sorry. And they don't need to be sorry. No, we should. We should say sorry. We should recognize that their feelings is valid just like ours, so we can actually feed into them, that they'll be receptive to us, right? Because we have made it normal that they have a voice and that we are people they could come and talk to. And when we are those people, then children, I will say to you, go to your safe adults, right? When it gets a little bit too overwhelming for you and your feelings is just too big to describe, it's too big to handle, then it's time for you to pick up them worry monsters, to pick up all those things that are bothering you and hand it to an adult and say, please help me. This is a bit much. And yes, I'm a kid. And yes, I haven't experienced much, but what I'm experiencing is real to me and it is big. It's the hugest thing in the world. And you know what? You are right. It sure enough is. And it does need to be taken care of. And yes, you could breathe and do what, be physical and do all those things, but you don't have to carry that load by yourself.
Wow. Wow. Dr. Smalls. Wow. Karen. Wow. Keisha. Thank you all so much for bringing light and attention to something that we all need to talk more about. Boy, oh boy, I'm still digesting all that has been shared, all of your words of wisdom in terms of prioritizing, in terms of not functioning and dysfunction, in terms of being aware of the resources available to you and where to find them, and to the importance of taking care of your brain. Boy, oh boy. Thank you so much, Keisha Gibbs. Thank you so much, Dr. Samantha Smalls. Thank you so much, Karen Pascal, for being a part of this panel discussion, bringing light again to the importance of our mental health and how we must take care of ourselves if we are going to help take care of others. And with that, I want to segue to a brief video vignette we want to share with you all that highlights how not only the Office of Early Childhood, but just our state at large supports the importance of this subject matter, recognizes that we as adults, in order for us to be the best that we can for our young children, we have to take care of ourselves. And for that purpose, the Office of Early Childhood has started a statewide campaign entitled It Starts Within. We would like to share with you a few video vignettes highlighting that. Passing it over.
Caring for others can be really hard. You are giving of yourself every day. It can be both wonderful and a challenge. We can't give to others what we don't have. That is why caring for yourself is so important, both for you and everyone in your life. It starts within. Small steps can make a big difference in your happiness and wellness. What we focus on, how we think about our lives, and how we approach challenges. This can all change our life and the lives of people around us. Explore ways you can support your well-being, from practicing self-compassion to finding self-care that fits. Remember, you matter. It starts within. Life can get messy, and we feel it. It's okay. We're human. Try a new perspective. Take that next step forward, even if it's wobbly. Look for the good, and it will grow. Lean on the people who support you. Children do what we do. They're learning from us all the time. And their well-being starts with ours. It starts within. Visit itstartswithin.info.
And so with that, as we recognize the importance of starting within, we know that we cannot do it alone. And we at the Office of Early Childhood are so thankful to our sister state agencies for their support in uplifting this important message. And with that, it allows me to have the wonderful honor of introducing our closing message speaker, Commissioner Jodi Hill-Lilly. Commissioner Jodi Hill-Lilly has worked at the Department of Children and Families since 1988. Throughout her time at DCF, Commissioner Hill-Lilly has supported the agency through many roles. She has worked as a child welfare trainer, an investigation supervisor, and a case management social worker. She was also director of training and was responsible for delivering and providing a multifaceted training program for employees statewide. Under the leadership of then Commissioner Vanessa Durantes, in 2019, Commissioner Hill-Lilly became the agency's Deputy Commissioner of Administration, while also leading the department's initiative on racial justice. She was responsible for assisting with the development and implementation of policy, training, and coaching on issues related to race and culture throughout the agency and with many community partners. Just this past legislative session, Commissioner Hill-Lilly was unanimously confirmed by Connecticut State Senate to become DCF's next commissioner. Her leadership and influence hold no bounds to state lines. On a national level, she serves as co-chair of the National Partnership on Child Safety and is a nationally recognized practice improvement and subject matter expert and consultant for the Center for States in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Administration for Children and Families, and the American Humane Association. But in addition to all that has been said, and what is more evident through her actions, is that Commissioner Jodi Hill-Lilly has a leadership style where she leads by example, by empowering those whose path she crosses in whatever way sees fit for them. It is my honor to introduce to some and to present to others Commissioner Jodi Hill-Lilly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm trying to figure out who Lorna was just talking about. To hear somebody else talk about you is just amazing. And let me just say, I feel like Dr. Smalls just dropped the mic a minute ago. I mean, that was absolutely, positively phenomenal. And Dr. Smalls, you will see that a lot of what you said is ending up in my presentation that I'm going to offer to you all. And so let me just ask, Lorna, are you sharing my PowerPoint or should I?
Please feel free to do so.
Okay, so let me do this first, and then you will see what I'm talking about when I say that, let's get it into presentation mode, that Dr. Smalls was all up in my conversation. So as you can see, the name of my presentation is Healthy Children Need Healthy Adults, Normalizing Conversations on Mental Health. And you heard just a little bit about me. I've been in this field for over 35 years, 36 years. I started when I was 10. Nah, just kidding. I'm a proud 57, getting ready to be 58 years old. And quite frankly, this is the first and only position that I've had, and it's my honor to serve in the capacity of commissioner. I realize I stand between you and the end of this presentation, so I'm going to try to be brief and get out of your way, yet share some nuggets that I think support the conversation that's already underway. First, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Commissioner Bai and Dr. Thomas Ferguson for and the OEC leadership for recognizing Mental Health Month. This is so critical that you can take a two-generational approach because, quite frankly, if we're going to make a difference, we all need to be in this conversation. So I applaud you for your efforts on this. I also want to say that I've been in this position now for about 4 months. And I will tell you that this particular topic is top of mind for me, and for a lot of reasons. One, because we recognize everything that everyone else has said, in that this is something that has been almost like a quiet, sort of storm that has been happening. And we need to take charge of this conversation and make it normal to talk about this. I will tell you that when I reflect back on my own life, I think back to, a grandmother who now I'm pretty sure had a little bit of psychosis episodes. I didn't know it back then, right? We have family members that are depressed, that don't go to get the help that they need. And it's right underneath us. And yet we don't talk about it, we cover it up. And so part of what I want to talk about is what the Connecticut behavioral health system is doing to provide necessary services and to get ahead of the curve, and what DCF's responsibility in that is. So for those of you who don't know, DCF by statute is responsible for children's behavioral health. And we have over $300 million that support mental health services. DCF has a psychiatric hospital for youth. We have 2 psychiatric residential treatment facilities, one for girls, one for boys. And recently, we restructured our agency to do exactly what, so interesting, Dr. Small said. And Dr. Smalls, I didn't print this up after I heard your presentation. It was part of my presentation. So what I did recently was to take our resident pediatrician and put her over the behavioral health initiatives so that there was better integration between health and behavioral health. And in parentheses, you'll see in that second to the last bullet over there, to address brain-based health issues. And so that integration and normalizing mental health as an overall health issue is a focus of the work that I'm trying to do and the message that we're trying to push out there. And we're trying to focus in on what I say, and if you heard me speak anywhere, I feel very strongly that we need to take care of the people who take care of the people. And so what do we do, as been said many a times, to take care of ourselves? I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, and I just have to say it, and that is intervening earlier on. And DCF just stood up urgent crisis centers for kids. And it's a more family-like, holistic kind of a setting where kids can go get help short of the emergency room to avoid the emergency room visits, much like we have urgent health centers that we all go to. We now have an urgent crisis center. So we're trying to make sure that we set up a system that is more conducive to the needs of our kids and families. So that slide I just showed you is what DCF is doing. Outside of what DCF is doing, there are a whole host of professionals, people with lived experiences, providers that are looking at this issue of children's behavioral health, because it takes more than just DCF. It takes a system to transform and address these issues that we're talking about. So we now have a legislative effort called Transforming Children's Behavioral Health. It's a policy and planning committee. And that work, I just attended a meeting yesterday, and they did a presentation on school-based mental health services. Professionals from all levels in the conversation, trying to figure out how we address this issue. We have, as I mentioned, DCF internal operations in the slide before. We also have a behavioral health plan implementation advisory board, which has been around for a really long time. That really was the impetus of, or what the result of what happened in after the Sandy Hook shooting. There was a massive behavioral health plan that involved multi-agencies to get together to figure out how we're going to work together to address this mental health crisis that we're dealing with. And again, that's been underway for a while now. And then even, just recently I was talking to the governor. The governor and the cabinet is very focused on how are we going to address mental health. And there's actually a children's cabinet that has been developed, and a large part of those conversations will cover children's mental health. And I'm sure we've all talked about this, suggested, some of the data in the previous conversations. But worldwide, there's about 1 billion people suffering from some form of mental health. That's a lot of people. That's worldwide. I took this information from Dr. Wisdom Powell, who's an amazing speaker and a practitioner in this space of mental health. If you don't know her, look her up. She's just absolutely amazing. And she does this presentation, and I want to give her credit for this information and data that I've just pulled. So she also says about 60% of adults with mental illness do not receive mental health services, which is quite alarming. And as we said, what we're really trying to dispel some of the myths around the need for mental health services. So Dr. Wisdom Powell also went on to say that females are twice as likely to have mental illness than males. And from 2011 to 2021, suicide deaths increased among people of color and young people and people living in rural areas by 30%. And so we talked about how the pandemic has exacerbated our issues around mental health. 75% of young people involved with JJ met the criteria for a mental health disorder. And it makes you wonder, are we over-incarcerating kids and youth that are where there are mental health issues that are covered up by some of the behaviors? Black people living below the poverty level are twice as likely to report serious psychological distress as compared to those over the poverty level. So those in poverty experience psychological distress that goes undetected. Right here in Connecticut, we have a rising number of youth that are feeling sad and helpless. From the years 2005 to 2023, we saw a rise from 25% to 36% of youth feeling sad or helpless. We also know that 18.8% of adults in Connecticut report experiencing mental health, and that's what's reported. And again, the rising amongst of people of color and those in our LGBTQ communities, rising rates of mental illness and mental health issues. According to SAMHSA, 13% of youth age 12 to 17 experience major depressive episodes in Connecticut. And what you should know that we should be very proud of in Connecticut, due to our partnership with DEMIS, that we have some of the best service arrays above the national average. Connecticut is ranked above the national average for responding to mental health needs in our community. Unfortunately, we also are above average in terms of our suicidality rate, which gives us all pause and tells us, we have much to do right here in Connecticut. So you might, I added this next slide in here only because I wanted to just bring home that everyone is impacted by mental illness. Young, old, rich, poor. And did you know that the folks listed here are celebrities who died by suicide? I grew up watching Soul Train. I will tell you, I had no idea that Don Cornelius committed suicide. We just had a golfer just very recently who committed suicide. I was listening to a presentation yesterday, and they were talking about second graders having psychotic episodes. I'm hearing that in the elderly community, we're seeing more mental health. So this conversation is for everyone. It does not discriminate. So what are some of the significant contributors? I would say, you know, this was mentioned a little while ago. I heard it. For a while, we just didn't touch. We didn't touch each other. We have to almost learn how to re-engage with one. I know some people who are still very afraid to be physically in touch with others. We're in a world where mass shootings become normal, where the politics and the media is disturbing. I don't like to watch the news. It's very depressing. We have international relationships that are heightened issues around the country. We have social media. I am convinced. I have teenagers. I have a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old. And I am convinced that social media has had a hugely significant impact on isolation. The thing that is supposed to make us more social has led to isolation. And I think we have yet to even understand the impact of social media on our kids. I also am starting to see, even in our work every day, increase in domestic violence, murder, suicide is up. It's like none other in my 36 years, it's up. We're seeing increased mental illness in kids with IDD and ASD. We're starting to see, this co-occurring thing that's happening with substance use and opioids and mental health, psychotic breaks that are happening at alarming rates. We have ourselves a crisis. And at the same time, we're having a workforce issue in the mental health space. I have a question for y'all. Where the mental health professionals going? There's a lot of folks that have decided they just don't want to do this work anymore, particularly in home services. And I ask, I'm reading, where did everybody go? And, people are making decisions. They want to work virtually. You now have the Uber. I mean, people love to Uber. There are people who are, contract employees, and they're not signing up for these jobs. And so why? Because I believe that we need to do exactly what this webinar intends to do, is to help us have work-life balance, to help the people who are helping the people. We have to do things differently. We can't approach our employees the same way we used to, those who are working in this space. We have to treat them holistically so that it incentivizes them to do the job that they are intended to do. So there are a couple of solutions that I just wanted to sort of bring to light as I bring this to a close. As said earlier, we have to normalize these discussions at work and at home. And I will tell you, one day I just sat down and I just did a genogram. And I did it for my husband's family and I did it for my family. And what I saw was undiagnosed mental illness. And it was something that we just never really talked about. So I'm going to invite you to challenge yourselves to just take inventory to see what is happening in your own world. I wanted to also bring to light a book by a woman by the name of Medina Jet. It's called Peace Be Still. I have the book. I have my camera on blur, but it looks something like this. And she writes an unfiltered story about how she came to understand that her son had mental illness and what it did for her. What she does is normalizes this conversation, and she's inviting people to do the same. Let's not keep it a secret. I will tell you, it is something that we talk about in our house all the time. taking care of yourself and making it normal to talk about this. There's this YouTube video that's out there of you all. It's about this Black adolescent female telling her mom that she's feeling suicidal. Y'all should look it up. I just put depressed adolescent tells her mom she's feeling suicidal. And the mom, you know, is like, we don't get depressed. And what are you talking about? Depression is me not having money to pay bills, me not having the dishes that are in the sink that you won't go wash. I'm depressed because, and it's intended to be funny, but it's at the heart of us as a people sometimes not really addressing this issue of mental illness. I tell people wherever I go to church, and I go to therapy because I believe the Lord told me I need to go to therapy because he put therapists on this earth to help even church people. So I'm on a personal mission to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, and we need to take care of the whole person. So we can't just look at the child. We have to look at the people taking care of the children. So thank you, OEC, for doing what you do. We need to start early, and we need to start further upstream. I love the statement, it's okay to feel. And I would like to introduce a term for you all, rest as resistance. It's something that I need to do every day. I need to take care of myself, and I need to resist the pressures that are upon me and rest. So I thank you. I thank you for giving me this time to talk. And I look forward to continued conversation. And I appreciate this village as we work together to break the stigma.
Wow. Commissioner Jodi Hill-Lilly, thank you so very much for your powerful closing message. All of what you were saying was absorbing it, was just empowered by it. You can see the reaction that those who heard you as well are having. And to remind us of the importance of rest as resistance. Rest as resistance. Powerful. Thank you so much, not only for sharing words of wisdom here, but for your leadership of our children in Connecticut. We greatly appreciate you. And want to extend the appreciation to all of those that have been a part of this webinar experience. Jen Ide, want to thank you. She's behind the scenes. You don't get to see Jen Ide, but she helps to oversee all of our Zoom management and registration. So Jen, thank you so very much for all that you do and your support. Diana Reyes, thank you so much for giving interpretive instructions at the beginning of the webinar. And Aranda and Eleanor, thank you for providing interpretive services. Deb Bliss, thank you for your welcome remarks. And of course, Representative Kai Belton, thank you for a powerful keynote message. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shanae Russell, thank you very much for introducing the Keep It Real videos and for all of your support. And we certainly want to thank those that were part of the For Families by Families Keep It Real effort as well. Dr. Haley Scott, thank you for providing an overview of Mind Over Mood and for your support of that effort. And to our panelists, Dr. Samantha Smalls, Keisha Gibbs, and Karen Pascal. Thank you so very much for an engaging conversation and discussion about this very important topic. I want to also thank O'Donnell Company for their support. They're behind the scenes as well, but they help with this webinar, and they also are helping with our It Starts Within campaign. So thank you so much for your support of that. And last but not least, want to thank you once again, Commissioner Jodi Hill-Lilly, for all that you do and for your way of just keeping it real and telling it like it is. You have such an authentic style of leadership and of supporting others, and greatly appreciate you in so many ways. And this is the last but not least. To all of you that are viewing this, watching this, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for taking the time out to listen. Thank you for taking the time out to be aware, because as we know, this is not a one and done. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. However, we know it is something for us to be mindful of year round. Thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for prioritizing our mental health. And want to leave you with the quote: remember that your mental health is a priority. Your inner peace is essential, and your self-care is a necessity. Please continue to take care of yourselves until we come together again. Thank you.